I think the key here really is the state of oil demand. When they met and decided to increase production in July, Delta was not as big a concern. China hadn't gone into lockdown, and they stayed cautious in the ramp up in production. So, fast forwarding to today, the demand situation is worse. And so I think it would be, quite difficult for them to agree to increase production. I think they will probably, in the press conference, address the potential to increase production further. But the oil market hasn't fully rebalanced and it's facing another speed bump on its demand recovery. So it's probably premature for them to increase production further.
And the way the White House phrased it at the time, we actually had Jen Psaki saying, look, we know they've got more capacity that they can pump out, so that basically we want them to. But she cited that she wanted to see a rebalancing in the global market for oil pricing. However, US pump prices have gone up. So what is the story at the US pumps? Is it to do with output levels?
Yeah, so that's a very important distinction. When you think about retail gasoline prices, they broadly follow oil prices, but oil is actually only 60% of what sets the price at the pump. You add to that taxes in the US, you have to add the cost of biofuels, and then finally you have a marketing margin. And so if you look at the last couple months, despite oil gradually coming off, retail gasoline prices in the US haven't. And that's mostly because of those other components. Biofuel prices are supporting gasoline prices. And because the hit of COVID to oil demand has not been uniform, so jet demand is much lower than gasoline. Gasoline actually has to be higher in prices to keep refiners making it. So there are transient distortions. Over time they should normalize, but OPEC on its own, will not change that domestic dynamic that plays out in the US. So I think that was the second part of the White House statement. The first one being, sure, lower oil prices would help, but they've come off already to some extent due to Delta, and they remain below OPEC's budget. They remain lower than when OPEC agreed to increase production. So it still is, I think, premature for OPEC to come out and say we're going to open the spigot. Now, that's the key point. When you look at the next 6 to 12 months, OPEC is going to ramp up output consistently, above what they've agreed so far. And in fact, wherever you look around the world, supply is starting to disappoint. So there is a case where indeed they would have to do more than what they've agreed, just not in the short term when demand has weakened.